and welcome to Our World, Our Power here with Lady Pauline and Mr. Glen Greenidge of the community. Well, we call him the mayor of Southern Boulevard.
All right.
I like that. I like that very much. How are you doing, Glen?
I'm good. It's a wonderful day. We've got beautiful weather after all of this rain and storm, so it's good to have a truly summery day.
Yes.
So that's all.
So what do you want to put on the table today? What do you want to discuss?
Well, I think we should talk a little bit about the Dominican Republic. I'm a little concerned about that.
Do you think this is a conspiracy? Do you think this is somebody's doing this willfully? Do you think it's a group, or what do you think it is?
My thoughts are that there may be some willfulness in it, but I suspect there's probably has to do more with money. And why I'm saying that is that there's been some talk about some tainted liquor that was identified on the island.
So is it just one? Is it limited to just one hotel,
Two.
or it's more than one?
Two.
It's two. Okay.
So there have been two reported resorts is it Punta Gorda? I think it's in Punta Gorda, and then there was most of them are at those two resorts that have taken place in terms of what's going on.
Do you think that it's going to create a problem as far as the revenue, because
Absolutely.
tourists is the big thing?
Tourism is one of the biggest things. However, Americans are not the biggest tourists there. Actually, the Germans and a lot of Europeans are the biggest tourists that go to the Dominican Republic. Santo Domingo is a newer, and I think these resorts are either in Santo Domingo or Punta Gorda. My family actually owns a timeshare in Puerto Plata, which is an older resort city.
How would you feel about going there next week?
I would actually be okay. I'm not, well, two things. I'm not a big drinker.
Okay.
So I don't do a lot of drinking, because what happens is you get the bans and you can drink all you can drink. All you can eat and all you can drink. And so people tend to indulge more.
So basically it's really not necessarily the water, it's the liquor.
I think it's the liquor. I think it's the liquor. But of course there's a big discovery, FBI and everybody else is looking into it and helping the Dominican Republic. But
because I know it's up to like 7 deaths.
yeah, it's 7 deaths, and when you think about it, they've already put out something a month or two ago about traveling to the DR.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
What was it that they put out?
Something to, just be careful. They put it on their kind of watch list. So with this and that, you're now really negatively impacting the tourist industry from America to the Dominican Republic. So it's doesn't sound like a big deal, but for a small place like that, to have Americans now not going or changing their reservations and so forth
It will create quite a problem
it's
economically.
a great problem, because when you think about it, they don't have a whole lot of industry there. Tourism is probably the #1 industry, because although they do manufacture jewelry there.
Oh yeah.
They've got a couple of jewelry firms that are operating out there, because of course the labor is cheaper than the U.S. So they can manufacture things over there and still send it back to this country and still be under general cost.
But the Dominican Republic, they're getting hit right now because they had the what's his name from the Red Sox?
Oh, David Ortiz.
David Ortiz.
Did you say Red Sox?
Is it?
Sorry, excuse me, I'm a Yankee fan. The Red Sox, yes.
Yeah, that he got shot.
He got shot. Now, here's the interesting twist about it. They're saying that he wasn't the target. They're suggesting that one of the guys that he was with
Was the target.
was a target.
Because I heard a rumor that he was messing around with a young lady that was connected to the
I heard
mob.
that too. I heard that too.
And,
So you know,
I don't. So no, nothing is definite.
it's like anything else. You know, what kind of spin are you going to put on it? You know, who and what better spin to put on it for the whole public relations of the Dominican Republic right about now. So you got these 7 deaths, then you got a public celebrity shooting. You know, so you've got
That's a lot of things that's happening at the same
at
time.
So that's a lot
like
of negativity.
Very
It's
much
got to
so.
be overcome. So you know, it'll be interesting to see how it all fleshes out. But they had like about 7 people that were involved with the whole conspiracy, and from what I understand, if I remember correctly, it was an equivalent of about $8,000 that was paid to hit whoever, whether it was him or his buddy.
That's not a lot of money. $8,000 is not a lot.
Yeah, but you got to remember where you're at.
That's true.
Okay, the Dominican Republic, you probably, now I don't know, I'm just making this up off the top of my head, but I would say the average income there is probably 3,000 or 4,000, maybe 5,000. I don't know. I mean, it's not like New York, certainly, and certainly not like what you can make in America. So that money goes a long way. So 8,000 is probably a substantial amount of money in the Dominican Republic. 8,000 US is huge. Yeah.
Also, last week there was another controversy about one of our actors, Cuba. What was his name? Cuba
Gooding
yeah,
Jr.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised when he got arrested and for supposed to be rubbing up against somebody. Was it a man or woman that he was rubbing up against?
A woman.
A woman. Thank God it was a woman.
A woman. He inappropriately touched her.
Ooh. Ooh. I would say thank you for touching me.
You got a celebrity, you know. It's a little strange because they showed some video, and the video that I saw, his girlfriend was sitting next to him, and this woman was on the other side of his girlfriend. So I'm not sure. And at one point in time, he put his hand on her leg. So there was some kind of something going on, but
well, you know that's kind of unacceptable. You know,
that is
bad taste.
Well,
put it like that.
If it's unwanted, or if it's not, you know, again, it's hard to say, and you know, I gotta say this from a man's standpoint. What used to be okay years ago is not. And, you know, this whole sexual harassment, you can say something like, oh, you know, I like how you're dressed, or I like your makeup or something, and people can take that the wrong way. So it's not so much what I intended to say, but it was how it was received. And so if you perceive it and receive it differently than I was intending it, then I'm in trouble.
Yes, because also the vice president, former vice president Biden also was accused of hugging and being too touchy and feely.
Kiss somebody in the head.
And is that just a person's personality, you think, and they're just looking to blow up this stuff and make it more than it is?
You know, it's dicey at best, because as a man, you have to be overly careful now. I can't say, hey, you look nice, without wondering, do I have the room to say that?
True.
You know, and sometimes, you know, it's interesting because sometimes I'm not trying to do anything except say, you look nice. And keep walking. and that could be perceived as a hit or whatnot, or just being friendly.
Because they do have some people that are very, clingy. They like to hug you. They like to kiss you.
Yeah.
And it's not always, as a woman's perspective. My perspective is that everything isn't always a sexual connotation or contact that's behind what you do. But a lot of times it is too. So I think men now are really put into a very bad spot.
Well, I think it's worse than that. I think that now you're not going to see the amount of women in high C-suite executive positions because men are going to be afraid to hire a woman in those positions. And I think that the whole opportunity for women is now going to be threatened by that, because people are concerned about, how do I interact? And if I don't know how to interact, I'm not going to interact. So, maybe you as a woman at the table, I'm not going to reach out and joke around or play around or,
Well, maybe
build up the
maybe that
relationship.
was the point, that there was too much of it going around, too much joking around, too much, touchy-feely and
Well, the thing that in all rights, and I get it, men see a woman and they automatically, oh, you're going to get me coffee, or that kind of stuff, which is really.
Oh, that's not a good thing to do.
Are you kidding me? Especially when you get to a certain level, no, I'm not the secretary. You really want to smack the guy who would even come out as, but it's so automatic and such a, so all of that needs to be broken up. Also, what needs to be broken up is uneven salaries. Women are still getting a smaller percentage of what they should, what their counterpart, their male counterparts.
I know
are.
we was discussing that the other day, Glenn, but there's something I really don't understand, and I know you was trying to explain it to me, so maybe you can try again. I don't understand, like if like the way I used to work, everybody got, if you was a social worker, you would start off with maybe 45, 50,000, whether you was a man or a woman. So I know that because I used to see the paychecks,
All right, so change the field and look at, example, computers. That's the field I was in for 25 years. And so you would have people who would come in with the same skill set, but because they were black, because they were a woman, they wouldn't be offered the same pay. Now, they would be in the same grade, but the grade has a range.
Okay.
And so you have a midpoint, a max, and a minimum inside of that range. So let's say you're a level 10, computer analyst.
Right.
So within that level 10, you've got the max. So maybe the max is 90,000. The midpoint is 75, and the low end is 55.
Okay.
So what they would do is they would bring you in maybe at 60 because you're a woman, or because you're a minority, they bring you at 60 or 65, but they wouldn't give you 75, and they certainly wouldn't give you the max.
So who is all this up to? Is it up to your supervisors? Where does this decision start?
Supervisors. It starts with a supervisor. It has to be approved by HR, which is problematic because they're enforcing it. But in most companies who have been in HR or who's running HR have been white males. So you got white males in HR. You've got the managers who have been traditionally white male, at least when I was coming up.
Yes.
And so they were the ones overseeing the process.
Did you see the difference as far as...
I know that I came in with a particular skill set, and they gave me less money than a white counterpart that came in. We both came in from upstate, but because he was favored. He not only did he get a better salary, he got better equipment to work on. Sometimes it's not even, they're trying to cover it up. It's just blatant. I mean, this guy came in, got raises, the biggest raise out of the whole department. But also came in higher, with less experience.
So it's more like if you have managerial positions that you see this, or do you see this across the board? It's like people working in McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's.
Not so much. These are more professional positions.
Okay, so that's where it comes in.
It comes in professional positions because again, if you're in a union or you're you have a little bit more oversight in the union because you got a union rep. You can go to your union rep and say, how come this happened or that
That's
happened?
what I was trying to say. That I don't remember seeing all this big difference.
But in professional, for example, a doctor, you're going to get paid based on your experience.
Correct.
Who evaluates your experience? Some supervisory, maybe the chief medical officer of that particular company evaluates you. Now, if you are from his culture or from, or you're one of his friends, and I'm not, guess who's going to get the bigger salary?
You're the friend.
Exactly.
The person that you want to be in that position.
Right. So what you're talking about, you're really talking about institutional racism. That is subtle. It's not, it's not clear, but when you track it, it is clear.
Because what happens is, I guess, is most people are so glad for a job.
Well, you're looking for a job. You're happy to get a job. Maybe you don't negotiate as well as your white counterpart. That could be part of it as well. So there are lots of different reasons why it occurs. But when you think about it, and I think I'm going to quote this, but I'm not sure exactly. But I think that women still only make 60 to 70% of what their male counterpart makes. I think that's the number.
So how is this done? Can you look at a male's paycheck and look at your paycheck as a woman and see the difference? And you all are doing the same exact job.
But not unless I share my paycheck with you. You wouldn't know that.
Well, because sometimes we as a team, we sit down and we discuss, what are you getting, what am I getting, blah, 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 blah.
No, well, you don't do that in the professional level.
Okay.
Not really. Yeah, I mean, you say, well, I'm a assistant vice president or I'm a treasurer. And so then you click and well, the range for a treasurer goes up to this, for a vice president it goes up to this. So you know that the likelihood is that you're probably in a higher pay range because you're in a higher level, like that level 10, so maybe you're in a level 11, you're making more money. So it's I had a friend of mine who was in HR in, I'm not going to name the company, but it was one of the big companies up in Rochester, and it wasn't Xerox. And one of the things that she did is that she helped close out departments. And what she had to tell them, because again, when you're closing out the department, laying people off, you've got a certain percentage to lay off. Well, guess what they would do? They lay off all the minorities first.
Yeah.
And what she would say is, no, you can't do that. You have to go by each grade. So, 2 from grade 11, 2 from grade 10, 2 from grade 9, across the board. So you couldn't just do all the grade 7s, which is where most of the minorities were, and get rid of that heavy in that group and keep everybody else. No, you have to do it across the board. And you have to do it based on what the needs were for that particular department. And she had to go head to head with white men who were in charge, and she had to tell them, no, you're not going to do that. That's illegal. You can't do that. And she'd tell them in a meeting, let them know, and that kind of, the pressure from that, she needed to retire, because I mean, she did it for 2 to 3 years, from department to department to department to department, and literally fighting. She would lay it out, let them know what they could and couldn't do, and they would still try and do it.
And they did whatever they wanted to do, the bottom line.
No.
They didn't.
They didn't, ultimately, but
Okay.
they would try.
Try.
And then she said, no, I just told you, I gave you the criteria, you're not gonna do this. And I'm not gonna let you, because as a company, we'd be legally liable. So she was standing up for the company and forcing them to do the right thing that they wouldn't have done had they not been forced to. So it's the same thing with hiring. Unless you're forced to do the right thing, they're going to do whatever they feel is
They
best,
can get away with.
which is what the old boys network has always been. It's been bringing your friends, bringing your family, bringing, people who look like you, that you want to promote,
Tell me something, because I know that you're in Queens here, and you are seen about a lot of the businesses. How does that affect? I know there's a lot of immigrants,
Sure. Mhm.
especially we were in Queens, so this is a very diverse.
In fact, they say that this is the most diverse county in the country. In the country.
In the country,
In the country.
because you can find somebody from every country that's in Queens.
What did the borough president always says? There's 206 languages spoken here, or something ridiculous. It's like, but yes, we are very, very diverse. So what's your question?
Oh, my question is, with the diversity that's coming to, some more diversity in the buildings that are being put up in Southeast Queens, how do people know where to go to apply for these new jobs that's coming? Because you see the buildings going up, and people have asked me, well, where do you apply? How do you?
The first thing I would tell them is to go to the community board meetings. So we live in Community Board 12. Community Board 12 meets the third Wednesday of every month, except July and August. And in December, they meet on the second Wednesday instead of the third Wednesday. Those meetings are very informative, where we have companies that are coming in, people who are building hotels. Well, let me qualify that, because it doesn't happen all the time. So they have this thing, what they call, so you're a developer, and you're building as of right. So that means that you're within the zoning regulations. So if you're within the zoning regulations, you don't have to come to Community Board 12. But if you're not, and you're asking for a variance, the process is that the community board gets notified, and the community board has votes on whether to grant that variance or not. Now, we're still advisory, so it still can be overridden by they have the Board of Standards, which is a level of government that's appointed by the mayor for, I want to say, a 6 or 8 year term, and so they make the final decision, but they're supposed to be quote unquote independent.
Because I've never really ever gone to a community board to think about, looking for employment.
Well, that's a lot of people don't.
No.
But some of these companies come to the community board, and of course, especially if they're asking for something from the community, we ask them, good, make sure that you hire people from the community. So, it's a little give and take. You want something from the community wants jobs. So give us, let's, and they can't commit 100% to it, but they will give us access to whoever's going to be doing the hiring directly, and they can call that number. So that information is available, and that's one way to get access to the jobs that are coming in through some of the hotels and some of the residencies that are being built.
Also, what about the apartments that are being developed and made? And we talked about it a few times on the show about
The affordability?
the affordability. I have a friend of mine that she just left Virginia and she was asked to come back to New York. She spent 30 years in Virginia, and she came up here and she says, my God, where's the luxurious apartments? You know, because it has the sign that says luxurious apartments, and it's like some old building, you know. And so she's like, when you go down south, when you go to Virginia, Atlanta, whatever.
All that stuff is new.
New.
All that stuff is new, 4 or 5 years old or less.
Less.
Listen, we talked about this before. The area medium income, AMI, determines the quote-unquote affordability of the apartment. The AMI for New York, by the way, this is a federal edict. This is the federal government comes up with those numbers, and those numbers are given to the developers. So the developers have to, in order to get federal money, they have to meet those particular guidelines. Now, sounds great, except that for New York City, Westchester County and Manhattan is included. Now, apartments in Westchester, Yonkers and Scarsdales and all those high price places, plus Manhattan, is ridiculous, which is much, much different than Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, and Staten Island. That's a different income level than the rest of the borough, the boroughs in New York City. So
but why is the rent so?
I'm getting there.
All right.
I'm getting there. So what they base it on is a family of 4 making $90,000. That's an average. Yes. So that's considered the average.
Really, Glenn?
Yes. Right. And so they base on that $90,000 income. Two parents and two kids should be making $90,000. So based on that, then they drop down. So they go maybe 60% AMI, 40% at AMI, and then market. So they have different ranges. So they'll have. So let's say they have 100 apartments. So because of this federal money that they've received, they'll get, we would say 100 apartments. So out of 100 apartments, 20 of them would be 60% AMI. So 60%, 60% AMI is, what was it, 60, what's the number, 69? That's still, that's still up there. That's still like about 60 something thousand.
So
63,000 family income to get that particular property. So the example that I like to use is East New York. East New York is not a lucrative, high-income community.
No,
it's right on the border of Brooklyn, right inside Brooklyn, just over the Queens border. The average income of that community is maybe about $30,000.
correct. Now that sounds more like it. That's
Right.
true.
But if you're only making $30,000, you can't afford any of these affordable apartments.
Exactly.
So the AMI is not realistic when you use that federal AMI for the affordable housing, because the community's medium income that community's medium income can't afford the affordable housing that's being built.
So it sounds like to me that the whole system is broken.
Well, it
And
is,
you need to go back to the board and start all over, because it's not fair to people. I mean.
It's not.
No, I
It's
mean,
not.
if you have these jobs that people do have, and you're not making $15 an hour, you're making less than 50. Now people are making $15 an hour.
yeah, but even with
$15
$15 an hour, you're not able to you're not able to make enough money to afford
$2,000.
a one bedroom apartment, which can go from anywhere from $1,500-$1,600 to $1,800-$1,900. A one bedroom. You can't. So if you got a family and you're making you're making 30 or 40,000 as head of the household, and you got 2 kids,
That's nothing.
all you can afford, you can barely afford a one bedroom apartment. Because you still got to eat, you still got to get to work, you still got to, you still got other expenses. So
Was all this happening years ago, like say 30 years ago? Because I remember when I first got my apartment, in the late 70s, that, it's sort of like balanced out the rent and the paycheck.
Well, here's what you have to remember, and which is how the mortgage people figure out if you can afford a mortgage or not. Normally, it used to be no more than 25% of your income would go for your apartment.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
That's in a not a practical world, but ideal situation. You'd want to only spend about 25% of your income for housing.
Okay.
That then gives you enough money to spend for the other stuff that you need to do, savings maybe,
Con Edison,
your utilities, your overhead,
car fare, lunch,
car, whatever. So you would still have 75% to work with for your other expenses. You could even afford to put money away for your college for your kids, that kind of stuff. So it gave you, but nowadays you're talking about close to 40 or 50% is used for housing. So it doesn't give you a whole lot left, which is why people are going down south. For the mortgage that you're paying, so let's say you've got a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment here, your rent is
$2,500.
2,500. So let's say it's 2,500. You can go to a Delaware, to a Virginia, to a Maryland. You can go to those places and get a 3 bedroom apartment, 2 bath, 2 car garage on a half acre of property, and pay $2,500, maybe $3,000 a month. So you say, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's what I said. Well, what's going on here?
So you 3 bedrooms, you got land. You got 2 car garage, you got all kinds of
living
bathrooms.
large.
You're talking about probably another 5, 6, maybe even 1,000 more square feet in your apartment.
Yes.
Versus your apartment.
Got washer and dryer.
Washer, dryer, maybe. Well, not necessarily basement, because basements are more, northeast. But at least a crawl space and this and that. And you've got space.
You sure do. Because I've been there. I've been to Atlanta. I've been to Virginia.
Yeah.
I've seen it. The only thing that differs in certain parts of being down south is the transportation.
Right.
Do you drive?
You have to drive in those places because they don't have the public, infrastructure. They don't have they don't have it. They just don't have it. They have some bus service, but of course, we have the bus service. We got the subways. We've got the Long Island railroads and
all
Metro
New
North
Jersey.
coming in, New Jersey Transit. All of the different access points. So you don't have public transportation to the degree that you do here. But that's also part of it. That's also part of why you're paying higher prices here. We had an exodus in New York in the 70s where people were leaving New York by droves. Since then, in the 90s, that's begun to turn around and more people have been coming to New York. Now, because more people are coming to New York, again, supply and demand, basic economics. So you've got people coming, you don't have the place for them. That means that the landlord can up the price because there's competition. There's 3 or 4 people looking for that apartment as opposed to just one. So as a result of that, prices have been driven up, not artificially, but by supply and demand. And you're looking at people who are not making $90,000 for a household. Where do they live?
Exactly. That's always been my question.
They're being priced out.
Yes. I'd like to take this time to thank our sponsor, Stephen G. James and Associates, attorney at law, attorney at war. He's located at 87-66 Sutton Boulevard, and his number is 646-905-9000. Please reach out to him if you have a problem. This is the lawyer that hasn't lost a case in over 30 years. So he is good. He puts his mouth where his wallet is. So
yes, he does. He does the research. He does he understands and gets underneath the case so that he knows the people that he's representing and can defend them effectively because he does the extra work. So
yes, and we are listening to Our World, Our Power on Caribbean Buzz, and also you can also hear us on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, and Google Play. Our World, Our Power. Let's continue talking, Glenn. Now, with the crisis that this country is in, all right, and everybody wanting to come here with the border.
okay.
That's another issue.
How
does those people feel that they can come here and make it when we are here already and can't make it? I mean, they're coming with nothing. They're running from their country. They're coming with nothing. How do you start with nothing?
Well, that's why we have all these undocumented jobs that are getting paid underneath the table that are cash based. People work around it. People figure out how to get around it.
I know. I'm very curious because
I want to tell you a quick aside. I was talking to a family friend's brother, who I know the brother, so I know the whole family, was in Atlanta, had a tree fall on his house. And he had insurance and so on and so forth. And he had contacted his insurance company. His insurance company contacted some contractors. And the thing that he was very surprised at is the people who did the foundational work were Mexican. The people who did the drywall and whatnot was another crew of Mexicans.
okay.
And so he got to, he befriended them, got to talk with them, and they got nice new trucks and, doing well because they're going from house to house, doing, fixing up, doing this thing. And unbeknownst to him, there were busloads of Mexicans in Atlanta that would go down to the border and they would literally pass money through the fence. So they would make cash and pass it through the fence. So this whole notion of land of opportunity, it still is because I don't know that they were necessarily documented or undocumented, I can't say, but you have jobs that are available, especially in construction or rehab, that that people, look at. Well, let's Donald Trump. Some of his properties had undocumented workers working. So you want to? So I mean, it's not.
So, what is he talking about?
Well,
Yes,
well,
never mind.
Listen. I'm just using that as an example, but the construction industry is one of many industries. The home healthcare industry is another one. You've got people who are nannies, who are domestics that come in. That's a heavily Caribbean-based operation, and they come in and they get paid straight cash. That money isn't being recorded. They don't have a Social Security. So I mean, so there's money being made in various areas that people will come.
So we're also benefiting from it.
Of course we are. The issue becomes, the backside of it is that when it comes census time, they're not accounted for. So let's say you've got 40,000 people in this one particular area, but on the census you only have 20. So the federal government is only provide you services for 20,000, but you've got 40,000 people utilizing those services. So
that's the conflict.
That becomes where you get in trouble, having the undocumented workers working and living in your community, because they need services. They need health care.
Yeah.
They need ambulance services. They need water. They need sewer. Because they're living there.
Yes.
All of that, and that's why it's so divisive. The conversation is when you think about the census asking the question, "Are you a citizen?" Because if I'm not a citizen, I'm not going to answer that, because I don't want them to have any information, because quote unquote the census is not supposed to share that information with ICE.
Right.
So now you've got this group of people who are making money. If you brought them into the system, they'd actually be paying taxes.
So that's a good thing.
That would be a good thing. That would be a good thing. If we would allow them to work without necessarily a Social Security number or some kind of PIN that would allow them to work legitimately, instead of work, under the
So
table.
why can't we have that set up that we just, we make it legit, instead of giving people such a hard time to become a citizen? And why don't we just have it set up that, okay, you want to come to the United States, this is what you got to do, blah, 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 and make it happen.
Some states are providing IDs for people who are not citizens. I think that was just a law, I want to say California or somewhere had just passed it. We're looking at doing it here in New York.
Yeah, with the driver's license.
The driver's license, and so that you begin to at least have some identification and so forth. But it still doesn't address the tax part of it, and the income, and the leakage that of this money being passed through the fence. Think about it. I mean, you think about some of the Caribbean folks who are working here under the table are sending money back to their island.
Yes, they are. Yes, they've been doing that for years.
For years.
So why is it such a big thing now? Why is it so? People have been doing this for years. My family came over from Jamaica and St. Kitts and so forth, and I know they sent money back in the barrels and all that stuff.
Yeah, sending barrels of food and all that kind of stuff. And it's still
being done.
Yeah,
today.
it's still being done. It's still being done. I think that I can't really say what the issue is, because it doesn't make sense to me either. I mean, what makes sense is to put them on the payroll and begin to collect taxes so that you can pay for the services that they're getting that are not being allocated through the census. So that's why, for me, the question on it, are you a citizen, I think should not be part of that conversation, because you then get more people to fill out the census and to say, hey, I have a family of 4, living here, as opposed to, oh, citizenship, I ain't letting them know I'm here. I'm not letting them know about the 3 other people that are with me. I'm going. Yeah. So I mean, it's and not to point to Mexicans as being, that was just an example I used.
Yes.
But I mean, it's in any ethnic group that comes over, But let me leave in this other note that I thought was shocking when I heard it. I was at a Caribbean festival, a Guyanese folk festival that happens once a year, and one of the politicians came up and said, "Do you know that Ireland gets the same number of visas as the entire continent of Africa?" Now, visas are your way into this country.
Yes.
And, it's like, huh? Ireland gets the same amount as the entire continent of Africa?
Now big the continent of Africa
Well,
is, that doesn't even...
Well, that says that you're limiting people of Black African descent in coming into the country. So you look at the institutional racism that's occurring that only allows a certain amount of darker folks to enter into the country. So you got to look at the whole picture when you look at the immigration conversation. It's not simple by any means. However, we can do a better job than we're doing, I think. But people have to work together. I mean, this is, we can't have this, I'm a Democrat and you're a Republican and never should the twang meet. We've got to work together.
Because it's a one plane, and you need the left and you need the right.
You need both parties to really work together, to be able to come together and to make some things happen. Because it's for the betterment of the country, not necessarily to be divisive. And I think that's the message that's missing in our political. And I think I said in an earlier conversation, I think the Tea Party has destroyed the Republican Party, because the Republican Party that I know, that I'm familiar with, was willing to work with the Democratic Party much more so. The Tea Party folks came in, they were just, I'm not working with anybody, I want it this way, and they were allowed to come in. I think that they dismantled the remnants of the Republican Party, and since their rise, there's been less and less bipartisanship between the two parties, and I think it's unfortunate. I think it's
very unfortunate. But while the two of them are boxing it out in the ring, as I say, a whole lot of stuff is still going on. So to me, it's like a diversion. I'm over here with the ring. I'm boxing you. You're boxing me. So I'm looking over there, but you're not looking over here.
Outside the ring and on this side,
yes.
Deals are being cut
yes.
and being made. Yeah, well, listen, look at the Supreme Court. The fact that they didn't allow President Obama to select his person, and they held it over to hoping that Trump was going to get in, and then of course he did get in, and was able to use that vote to make it more conservative. So now he has had 2 nominees to that court. You don't need a whole lot to sway that whole conversation in a completely different direction.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I'd like to get back to what's going on right here in Queens. Our honorable borough president, Ms. Melinda Katz, is running for district attorney.
Yes, she is.
Um,
She and is it 7 or 8 people? I think it's about,
No,
I think it's at least 6.
No,
So-
it's about 7. It's
Yeah,
7.
It's 7, yeah, I think it's 7.
What's your take on it? Because I was watching the debate the other day, and it seemed like a lot of people is not in favor of Melinda Katz becoming our next district attorney.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things.
They said something about they didn't like the old school. They want new school. They want a new, fresher spin on things.
Here's the thing. Melinda Katz has not had the experience in that particular position, such as the judge, Lazak, who's running, and you also have 2 district attorneys, Neves and Lugos, who've been in the district attorney's office, one in Brooklyn and one in the Bronx. However, she has the backing of a lot of the leaders in Southeast Queens, number 1. Number 2, she's got name recognition. People know her. She's been out there. She's been doing stuff for the community. This is a position that is important to be reflective of the community. It makes a big difference in terms of how the criminality of this county is administered, and things can be changed around that. So personally, I think that, and there's also Rory Lanceman, who was a city councilman, who also set up, was head of the judicial committee on city council and did a lot of work with that as well. That being said, I don't know that any of them have the same name recognition that Melinda Katz does.
I know, because, she's so well known. She's very visible.
She's very visible, and I think that she is a people's candidate. The question then becomes, will she be able to convert? Now, she's a lawyer, by the way. She's a lawyer by trade. She passed the bar exam.
Exactly.
So she is a lawyer. So, it's not, it's like anything else. My take, she'd probably come in with her feet running and be able to do a great job. I think that she's got a particular consciousness that is important for Southeast Queens.
I thought it was more important to be the borough president than to be the district attorney.
Well, 2 things.
Okay, explain why.
Yeah, right. The borough president gets termed out after the 2nd term. So you've got 2 4-year terms.
Okay, so it's 8 years, right?
The district attorney does not. There's no term limit.
Okay. Gotcha.
So the last attorney, district attorney, was Brown, and he's been in there for over 30 years.
Yeah, that's the difference.
So it's a huge difference. So you get in, you don't have to really run again, unless somebody can.
I'm glad we talked about it, because I didn't realize. I've been sitting down trying to figure out. I thought it was very prestigious to be the borough president.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, it is. And in fact, a lot of people think that that's a leveraging point to go to be the mayor.
Mayor, yes.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to hear that she was running for
Well, you got to
district
remember
attorney.
also that she's been an assemblywoman, she's been a city council person, so she's run a lot of elections already. Maybe she wants to slow it down. She got her 2 boys, wants to relax a little bit and just kind of sink in and move forward in what she was looking to do. So I can get it.
Okay.
As a next move for her.
Glenn, it's always been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
We're having this conversation. You're listening to Our World, Our Power here on Caribbean Buzz. Don't forget to check us out on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, and Google Play. And thank you all for listening. Catch you all next week, Saturday, from 5 to 6. Thank you.
Ciao.
Oh, I forgot to ask you. How can people reach you, Glenn?
They can reach me at 718-291-2110 or info@sutphin, SUTPHIN, BLVDBID.org.
All right.